in the Bible, whether you see the word God, it's really gods with an S plural. It's a mistranslation by accident on purpose.
What is the evidence that the Anunnaki are real, besides just the fact that there are stelas and these murals all around the world that depict these eagle-faced, great beings that are, have a pine cone in one hand and they have wings on the other? What is that? Yeah. What is that whole representation?
The Yahweh in the Bible is not the creator of the universe. He gets angry, which is a bad sign, number one. Then he destroys the tower. He blows it up. Then he takes all the people and he says to them, my seed shall not abide a man forever. His years shall be 120. So now he's shortening our lifespans.
You see the name Anunnaki and Anuna over and over again, all around the world, but especially in Mesopotamia. So Billy and I had already worked together several times previous to the latest book I wrote called The Stage of Time. And we actually did these projects totally independently. I didn't even know he was writing that book at the time. And so what's interesting about that is that he focused on, like he said, the metaphysical nature of reality and some of these ancient wisdom that came down through Thoth's prophecies and Thoth's Emerald Tablet writings. And I also, at the same time, had woven in several different Emerald Tablet readings within my book as well. And so we had a lot of this cross connection with a lot of the stuff, the focuses that we were looking at with ancient history, with the esoteric nature of reality, all of these aspects that we're not being told as a society. We're not being told, who we really are, and about these ancient writings that predate what we think of as religious texts that tell this great tale about this human epic, or epics you could call them, that predate us, that most people don't even think ever existed. And so I found that reading these ancient tablets in these ancient writings, from cuneiform tablets all the way up to Gnostic and going into Vedic texts and all of these different ancient texts around the world, they were all talking about this lost chapter of human history that we had amnesia of because of all these disasters that have occurred, and the suppression information, and even the destruction information as well. And so I included, like Billy said, he included all the Emerald Tablets. I included some of them when it connected to talking about things like the Atrahasis and a lot of these other ancient tablets that have a lot of cross information that really connects. And that's one of the reasons we say, hey, why is there such a small amount of information about the origins of some of these writings? Because they've been suppressed and hidden for so long. And in my opinion, the things that we most should look into and uncover evidence about are the things that we've been told the least about. That's how I see that.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Yeah. Yes. I mean, the Anunnaki History Group was started a couple of years ago. And, primarily I had started looking into a lot of the anomalies. This is how it really got started. I was doing anomaly hunting with myself and Thomas and a few others. And I started realizing that a lot of these ancient relics, or these things that look like ancient relics on other planets, mostly Mars and some on the moon, had a strong resemblance to the ancient megalithic structures on Earth. So I said, wait a minute, I got to put two and two together here. Why is this like this? Why is the similarity here, not only from all around our planet, with pyramid structures, with megalithic building, but also on other planets? This means there's one architect. One architectural design means that there was one bottleneck. Whoever it was, or whatever group that was, said duplicate this everywhere. And so when I began to read the Emerald Tablets, and within tablet number 1, it literally says, Thoth tells his crew, so to speak, to go out and spread out and duplicate what we've done here in the land of Chem. So they went out and they began to duplicate all the pyramids and the structures and the advanced civilizations. So I really do believe that civilization was an interplanetary civilization, not just global. So when people ask me, where is Atlantis, I tell them we're sitting on top of Atlantis right now. Every single one of us, no matter where you are on this planet, you are sitting and standing on top of Atlantis, because it was literally everywhere. Yeah. The Ring City was just one of the capitals that happened to get into a battle or a war or maybe a geological disaster. We don't exactly particularly know, but one of the three things happened, and the ring city itself was just one of the capitals is gone, probably sunk, or maybe some people think it might have taken off. However, regardless of the fact, they were global. So today we're going to kind of touch base on, talk a little bit about some of the systems that were put in place by these Anunnaki people long ago that are still having a direct effect on us today, spiritually and even economically. A great book that I had read some time ago was The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. Okay, now this book is just an amazing read because he goes into some information that can be verified, which I went and did the research on, how the Anunnaki installed an economic system in ancient times that put us in the current debt we are in today. They started the whole inflation system and the debt and the IOU system all the way back in ancient times. So what happened was basically back then when the Anunnaki installed this kind of economic structure, a lot of Sumerian tablets have been discovered with these writings on these IOUs and these receipts. So let's say I had a farm and I was farming and I was herding or growing lamb, for example. And then somebody else was doing an orchard, an apple orchard. Well, the guy with an apple orchard can bring me over, 10 sacks of apples, and I would give him one lamb. Right, exchange, barter and trade. Right. Now, what if too many people started coming through and I ran out of lambs? Now what I can do is he can give me the apples and I would give him a cuneiform IOU. And he would walk away with this IOU for a lamb. So now I owe this guy a lamb. Okay? Now this can happen so many times to the point where there's a shortage of the lambs and all these IOUs are out. Now we're creating inflation. So now the cost of these lambs, when they do come back, when I grow more of them, when they're more born and they grow up to a certain age, now instead of giving me 2 stacks of apples, you might have to give me 5 stacks of apples for one lamb.
Sounds like the first banking system. Sounds like the first beginnings of how monetary notes they were written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this is thousands and thousands of years ago, this IOU system, this debt system, already put into place and installed upon us that way, this type of a capitalistic type of a system. And you see it propagate all the way to this current era. Another thing that was amazing is on my own, I researched the fact of the Sumerian metric system. Because when you look at some of the numbers in the Great Pyramid and so forth, you begin to see how they kind of correlate to metric systems or meters. And you're going, how is this possible? Because we just kind of, quote unquote, recently discovered that. Well, they discovered Proto-Sumerian writing etched into bowls and plates and stone in America, in South America, okay, in Mesoamerica, in Mexico area and so forth. So they already had a recording of the metric system back then. And that's even on, I hate to use Wikipedia as a good example, but they did their research. It's actually true. These stones have been discovered, and the metric system is also thousands and thousands of years old. So the point that I'm trying to make is everything that we have now, everything we're going through now economically, everything we're going now mathematically already existed, It's really amazing.
We're still working on ancient systems is what you're saying. Everything is measurements, time is still on ancient systems. History repeating itself.
Yeah. I think what Billy is saying, and also in a larger way, when we look at the context, is this creation of like a capitalistic almost empire, where these empires rise and fall over and over again. And the reason they do that, like Billy said, is they're in many ways, in economically and in other ways too, they're unsustainable and they always collapse because they don't design a system that's harmonious with nature and everything around them. It's this greed system based on keeping people in a perpetual system of, it's almost an enslavement of ideas and information in their time. It's amazing when you work a full week. It's some difficult job somewhere that you have to pay all these bills off that you have. At the end of the day, you get home, you're completely exhausted. Your energy has been drained. It's been taken. Your energy has been sacrificed and given somewhere else. And so that way, and I'm sure Billy is going to lead this into it. The idea of the Matrix is this idea that we exist in a reality that is based around keeping us completely distracted and drained of energy. So we essentially just become like these zombies walking around and working and getting home, and we don't really accomplish a lot. People don't really go out and hike up to some hillside somewhere on a Friday night and look over the universe around them and have a picnic. Most people, I should say, are going home and they're watching something on TV and then they're just falling asleep and that's it. But really, being these infinite beings here that are exploring our reality and understanding the nature of the universe around us, we should be constantly amazed by the fact that we exist in this reality right now. The fact that we have these physical bodies, these avatars that allow our consciousness to express ourselves and explore this world where there are physical consequences for everything we do. That's the great trap. That's the great illusion. That's why the Egyptians called it this illusion of Ka. It was this illusion of the physical world and all of the constraints that come with that trap us in a physical world, so we forget that we're actually non-physical beings. And that's what this whole entrapment here that a lot of people talk about and give certain names for are. Right, Billy?
Oh, yeah. You hit it right on the head, man. I mean, a lot of the ancient cultures would call it that we're living in the dream world or a sleepy world, a sleep time world, alluding to the fact that this whole, this physical reality is not true reality, and that we are truly multidimensional beings. It's really amazing the futuristic thinking that they were able to have to think centuries ahead in advance to put a system in place that would rise and fall like this, and rise up and collapse, but keep people enslaved mentally and also physically. And you put it right when you said, Matt, that they're stealing your energy, because they are really operating like these archons. And so they set these systems
like
up.
Harvesting.
They harvest. They siphon your energy, and your energy, because your energy can only go wherever you point it. So if you're diverting your energy into their system that they've got, because you of course in the matrix we have to send it there because we got to eat, we got to take care of our kids, we got to take care of our family, everything else. They put so much on our plate that all we can do is send all of our energy directly to them, and they're harvesting that energy from us. And once the energy goes out, we just literally can't get it back. The only way to take advantage of your energy is to redirect it, and that's the whole process of raising consciousness.
And is this Anunnaki designed, Billy? Is this a design program of the Anunnaki?
This is definitely a design system by the Anunnaki. This is a high-level, well thought out system to keep mankind in a position of begging and working and distraction. If you even look back to the Tower of Babel incident, where this tower was being built by the humans who were all working on one accord, all together, and all like
human
one
energy,
goal,
human resource.
Right. And here comes Yahweh, who's also really Enlil, and he says, "Oh my God, these people are working together in unison, in harmony, and peace." This is how you know that the Yahweh in the Bible is not the creator of the universe. He gets angry, which is a bad sign, number one. Then he destroys the tower. He blows it up. Then he takes all the people and he says to them, "My seed shall not abide a man forever. His years shall be 120. So now he's shortened our lifespans. We used to live for thousands of years prior to this incident. Now our lifespans have shortened. Chromosome number 2 has been fused together. Telomere caps put on the end. We can't live that long anymore." Then he splits us up and he changes all of our languages so we can't even communicate anymore. So now we become this, these foes, because what they do is a conquer and divide system. We can't communicate well. We're spread out. It's all about this one is better than this one, and that one is better than this one, and so forth and so on. This one has more favor with the quote unquote God, and this one has more favor with the God. And it becomes this big system of divide and conquer and split up people, shorter lifespan, so we can't live long enough to wake up. And I think that also another thing that they did was they installed this worship gene that I've been researching. And this gene has now been found by biologists that we really literally have a gene in our bodies that make us prone to want to worship. You add all that together, you got a recipe.
Naturally look up. I've been saying this. When some humans, they ask for help or they seek help or guidance, we all naturally look up. It's like programmed within us to seek from above.
Yeah, we've been looking externally for assistance and help and waiting on saviors, because these gods promise are going to come back. They always promise that they're coming back and returning. Meanwhile, all this help that we're looking for externally is not where the source of help is. The source of help and assistance is internal. You have to take a journey to inner space, the internal side, the inside. We were sent here to save ourselves. We are our own saviors. Proof in point, when you go out and into your community, if you see somebody that needs assistance and you help them, you become that person's savior. No deities needed. It's just something called empathy and understanding and taking taking action. And we have the same capability within us to even search within ourselves to save ourselves and help ourselves. I think the more we look externally for salvation, the more you'll never find it. I think you have to look to the inside, and that's one of the big esoteric messages that Thoth carried in the Emerald Tablets.
Yeah, that's well said, Billy. I really agree. When the more you look at the system and the perfection that's behind it here, and I know a lot of people will shrug their heads and they'll say to me, "What makes you think that a person couldn't design a system like that?" I've thought about that a lot, but the more I actually break the entire thing down, like Billy said, this incident at the Tower of Babel with the idea where there was once a common language that was shared among many, many people and a common understanding that we were all just a group of mankind together. And all of a sudden at that moment, this dividing moment in history, we were purposely divided, sent all over the place. Languages were all divided and given to different people. Races were put against each other. People were made to hate each other, to fight wars against brother and sister. And that's what they always say in the tablets. They say, why are you fighting your brothers and sisters? Because that's what the higher level perspective of us would see this as, whereas we're too caught in the middle of it with all of this hate and all of these distractions that constantly pushes and pull us back and forth. Well, what is this system here? It's a multi-pronged system. It's an umbrella over our reality that basically creates this narrow perspective on how we can do everything. And the way they do that is to create certain laws and certain ways to perceive reality. So if you were to say, well, how do you perceive this type of idea, this word, this reference, this object? How do you perceive it? And where did you get that perception from? People might scratch your heads and said, well, I was told that. Okay, so you were told to have that perspective on something, but you didn't actually come up with that perspective yourself.
Idea yourself. That's it. You had to be shown.
This is where the system comes from, where you can actually trace a lot of the laws and the monetary systems that are in place, and these organized banking systems, and the rise of the military-industrial complex, and going all the way back a lot further than that to things like the rising of empires like the Roman Empire and the destruction of what was known as the old religion, which Billy knows very well. The idea where, spirituality and religion were actually one and the same back long ago, but it was one of these control systems that was seized, one of the last means for us to break out of the system, because that's what it is. It's basically like the guide for us to understand the nature of our reality around us, but also understand the non-physical side of who we are. And once that became corrupted, thousands and thousands of years ago, we became locked in this Darwinian model of thinking that we're just an evolved ape and we're fighting here to rise up and conquer our world. Whereas if you really think about that on a higher level, it's a very, very silly way to perceive things around us, especially if you look at how it seems like everything has been this perfect control system and destined to happen at a certain time. So, for instance, when you look at the destruction that occurred, like Billy was talking about, to a lot of these ancient civilizations, individuals, great kings like Hammurabi and like Etania, they had stated in the ancient cuneiform tablets and writings that they left behind that all of the governing structures that they were following were given to them from above, they said. And in fact, they went a step further to say that they were actually designated to rule. It wasn't just a random thing where kings rose up to rule over and they were just wicked because they were, corrupt and bad people. It was actually certain bloodlines that were designated to rule over people, and they were called the archetypes of society, the architects, and they were the archetypes of designing how we would view everything here and what we would be doing on a daily basis. And those systems haven't changed really at all. If anything, the situation of war and fear and keeping us in this corrupted state has only reached its climax now, in my opinion, where we're in this reality right now where we have
it's all being unraveled.
We have the availability to see the truth. It exists at your fingertips through technology and through this interconnected collective society we have. And yet, at the same time, because of how much we've been subconsciously tricked and lied to, and how much people want to be accepted and normal, they're willing to ignore anything that goes out the mainstream because they don't want to be looked at as crazy or all these different things that come down. And like Billy was saying, and I want him to comment on this, the idea of how clever it was to lump any single possible conspiracy theory, regardless of what it is, all in the same category so that you can essentially control the message and label anyone as being a heretic or just a conspiracy theory nutcase. That way you can just keep the truth nice and controlled. When you say, Billy?
Oh, yeah. They've done a phenomenal job making these conspiracy theories crazy, psychologically impaired. What they've done is they've utilized what they put into us, which is we're the prisoners and we're also the prison guards. So by injecting this negative concept into the society, they've got it set up to where, as soon as one person tries to stand up and talk about the establishment,
they get shut down.
Somebody else will instantaneously, you call it the Agent Smith effect, like how Agent Smith in the Matrix, he jumps into a person's body. You can instantaneously see it. So if you're sitting there talking to somebody, you're talking about the Kardashians, and it's a great conversation. You guys can laugh and joke back and forth. But if you stop in the middle of the conversation and say, by the way, 9/11 was done by the United States government, all of a sudden, you're going to see that person's face change. Their countenance is going to change. That Agent Smith jumps into their body. Now that person who was a prisoner, a mental slave and a physical slave, has just now turned into a prison guard and is there now to stop you from moving any further, stop you from talking about it any further, and to redirect your conversation instantaneously, thereby locking you back up, in the non-physical form, locking you back up mentally to put you back in your place in this jail of mental enslavement and take you back to talking about things that really don't matter anymore. And
let me bring up really quick, Billy, on the reason why that I think people do that, and the reason how this prison guard system was created here. We as conscious individuals have this internal viewpoint of what reality is, and that is always running within us. And people find comfort in knowing that they understand what's going on. And so the more that time has gone on, we've been learning that a lot of this information has not always necessarily been true, and that we've been using experts, so-called experts, to judge everything in reality, and we just blindly go along with it. But now people are starting to question that, and we're starting to see some people come in and take little pieces out of this control of views of history. So how does the guard system work? Well, people will have to maintain this version of reality within themselves. And that's based on an entire lifetime of them feeling like they didn't waste their time with everything from high school up through college, up through anything that they're learning through TV or the radio or whatever's coming through. It's this lifetime of accumulated knowledge that represents their reality. Now, when you talk about things that could shatter the entire paradigm of how they view reality, when you say something like what Billy says, on how there are these really dark sides of our reality where there are individuals that are very corrupt and want to control things and create wars and create fear and a lot of these other things. When you learn that there is a lot of darkness and evil, it's very uncomfortable to think, okay, I don't live in this happy little place where the government is just looking over me and wants the best interest for me. And okay, so when they're dumping fluoride into my public water, that's just for my teeth. They're doing a really good job to help keep my teeth nice and clean and keep free of cavities. That's all that is. Don't even bring it up. And then if someone else comes in and says, well, look at all the food that you're being promoted. Why is everything about fast food and all these different aspects of ingesting things that lower our vibration? Why is it that when you go out and you eat this Big Mac, why do you feel so gross inside and you feel drained and you have to just sit there and sort of digest? Because that food and that what you're taking in has lowered your vibrational frequency. Isn't that interesting? And and then you look at medicine, all these artificial compounds that keep us sick, that don't
and it's feeding that chain, isn't it? It's feeding that higher chain of control systems that they've built.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, this hierarchical template that they've built, which has gone millenniums back. What timescales are we talking here? Because we're talking, is this before the temples of Uruk? Is this before any of the Akkadian temples? This is the missing link in humanity. What we cannot get is a specific, clear timeline, because they've changed. They keep changing.
Well, the legend of Billy, I want you to jump in after this. I just want to mention this. The legend of Atanya does give us that timeline. And to me, it's one of the only places of any piece of evidence we have that actually gives us a piece of a timeline to work with. Because Atanya was a king of the city of Kish. And what he says in that is that Kish is essentially the first city that's created after the golden age of civilization is destroyed. So that age that was occurring before, essentially they were wiped out and we had to start over again. And that's where this whole division occurred. Yeah. And so these disasters and a lot of these things that came through, Atanya says he was chosen to be the architect of the new world, not the architect just of Kish, but of the entire world. As in Kish and these cities in Mesopotamia will represent the rising of the next age of humanity and then the next empire to rise up. And that then disseminated all around those different regions of the world. But basically, we can trace to that moment where here Atanya says that he was given these divine instructions for how we would run our world. And just like Hammurabi says later on in Babylon, over and over again, all of these places of great power, Babylon and Nineveh and all these ancient cities, they became the location of where, like Billy said, civilization was essentially redesigned, and that's where everything has gone from, is those moments.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, they laid everything out, even how to make our street grids, the toiletry and plumbing. I mean, everything was given to us. And people have a hard time really, accepting that there's not a lot that we've contributed to this civilization. It's because there's only one way to build. There's many ways to have a civilization. There's only, probably one way to build a toilet. I mean, there are too many ways you can make a toilet. So I think in deep antiquity, there were toilets, there was plumbing. A lot of the information, a lot of that got destroyed, when the Great Flood came. When they came to reestablish and bring us back, as they say in the ancient tablets, bring us back to a higher level of civilization, a lot of the stuff needed to be given to us all over again from scratch. So how to set up a civilization, how to set up a city, how to set up a banking system. All these things need to be given right back to us again. So in this age of man, moving back towards the golden age, everything that we have is just simply a rediscovery. We're not starting from the beginning. This is just another epic, another cycle in the rise and fall of civilizations,
Billy, but there's an interesting point this leads me into something I want to bring up but was it like this before? Was this system in place before these disasters? It's called the Golden Age for a reason, because information flowed freely and people were much more connected in one. It doesn't mean that there weren't no wars, but it was a completely different time period where you had a lot of very powerful individuals that knew great amounts of wisdom, and they weren't representing necessarily the corrupted rules of our society like they do now. And so this is how I view it. When you read these cuneiform tablets, the account of this rise and fall of human civilization, the flood was specifically mentioned many, many times as being created, not just this event that was going to happen normally, but something that was actually created to happen here. Because they essentially what Enlil says, and for people, if you want to break this down, because we need to put some information behind this. Enlil is very important to understand that name, because En means Lord in masculine, whereas Nin, Ninlil, Nin meant the feminine version of Lord. So here, these names that define this pantheon of gods, their names literally mean Lord of this, Lord of that, because they consider themselves Lord of our reality. They were like the ordainers of destinies, as they're called. They created whatever they wanted here in our physical reality. Now, but that's a very important to understand. They created whatever they want in our physical reality, which means when you move from the last age after the destruction occurred and human civilizations were rebuilt again, one of the things they specifically said was because of who was ruling that time period, it was decided that human civilizations were going to take a step back, and they were actually going to be taught in a way where we would perceive ourselves as just being nothing significant, just this insignificant thing here that's fighting and in our own distracted way, whereas we weren't given all of the knowledge needed for us to forge our own objective mindsets to break out of the system here. In my mind, the system here that we have in place that corrupted religion and corrupted all aspects, that came about right after the destructive events of what we call the Younger Dryas. And that was because those individuals, those beings, if you want to call them, that were in charge of our reality of that during that zodiac age, decided to keep humanity basically enslaved by their physical nature of reality rather than the non-physical.
And do you think they are carved all over the world at these places? Every place all over the world has a different depiction of these same beings. These eight first... Yeah, these beings, these first beings, that they're all depicted in different parts of the globe. Because that came up today on Anunnaki group page, and a lot of people were saying that they're global. A lot of people don't understand that the Anunnaki were absolutely all over the globe, building temples and plates and grids all at one time.
Yeah, well, I saw, when I went to the Anunnaki group, I think it was yesterday or the day after, somebody had a post pending, and the young woman was trying to say that they only existed in Iraq and Africa, and that was it. And I was like, oh my God, I want to respond to this so bad. But unfortunately, I had to go on a show. But yeah, you're right. It's a global civilization, like I was saying in the beginning, and the evidence of them has been left all over the world. No matter where you go on this planet, if you go to Carryong 9 in Australia, there's a partially uncovered Egyptian temple there where the Egyptians would travel from Egypt all the way to Australia to learn from the Aboriginal elders, to get wisdom from them. And they would record that they arrived and what happened when they was there. And there's many lines going up for many different epochs that they had come. And there's one area in this stone where they etched, there's an actual UFO with little UFOs coming out of it. And it's an amazing thing. Now, around the backside of that, where this one Egyptian came there with his brother got bit by a snake and died. He tried to save him and he couldn't. He put him on, he made an embalming table or a zombie, or what do you call it, zombie? A mummification table in the back. And it's still there. That's the crazy part. Now, what's amazing, when I went to Egypt in 2014, the story of his return with his dead brother mummified is in Egypt. So it made a loop. The whole story made a loop and connected, made it very verifiable, made it very real. Another thing is, around the back of that area, if you walk down a little bit and go around the back, in the stone, there's etched into the stone a picture of Thoth the Atlantean. What is that doing all the way in Australia?
In Australia.
People were everywhere. You can find Thoth in Angkor Wat. You can find them all over Mesoamerica, South America. I've been to the Yucatan Peninsula, Teotihuacan. Everywhere you go, these people have been there. It's just amazing. They're a global, and not only that, interplanetary civilization. This is just one small planet. And I think for somebody to get a good understanding of what we're talking about, watch the movie Jupiter Ascending.
Yes.
You watch that movie, you're going to discover it's almost like a true story where you can see the levels of people.
I have questions. Jupiter. Jupiter. Yeah.
Well, think about that name, right? Enlil's planet was Jupiter.
Jupiter, exactly.
That it's called Enlil's Jupiter descending, right?
Yeah.
But like Billy said, I want to just give a little bit of background for those who might not be that well versed in where all of this came from and what makes it real, right? What is the evidence that the Anunnaki are real, besides just the fact that there are stelas and these murals all around the world that depict these eagle-faced, great beings that are, have a pine cone in one hand and they have wings on the other. What is that? What is that whole representation? I think that was the way that they were representing themselves as gods here, as enlightened beings with wings that were essentially showing you which side of this duality war that's here are playing, right? So the eagle-headed face, I don't think that had anything to do with the fact that they had a face that looked like an eagle. That was a symbolic representation of how they were beings that were representing themselves there as these conquering war empire beings who wanted to rule humanity through empire building and creating this system of worship here and control. Whereas on the other side, and like Billing is saying, all throughout the Americas, you saw this other completely different side where the depictions aren't of these necessarily just these eagle warriors or whatever it was like we see in other parts of the world, but they were like these serpent gods and these dragon gods. And here you have this whole, the entire other side of these two symbols we find all throughout history, of where here's this idea of the whole eagle versus the serpent or dragon, and how those two symbols could represent this conflict of interest that emerged here. Okay, and that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, the conflict.
Is this idea, but where did all this stem from? Well, if you go in and you translate and you find translations, the most accurate translations possible of things like the Atrahasis and the Enuma Elish and the Legend of Etanya, you see the name Anunnaki and Anuna over and over again, all around the world, but especially in Mesopotamia, okay? Those two names. So this is how it works. If you're a Sumerian and you're someone who's worshiping these gods, you called them the Anunnaki. That was what they called them, and they called them that because the name means those who from heaven to earth came. Whereas they themselves, in places like the Atrahasis, refer to themselves as the Anuna. They say, we the great Anuna, all of us agreed together on a plan. A plan?
Yeah.
What plan is that?
Plan.
It's the plan on how they wanted our reality to be run here. They're literally the architects of our entire reality.
A blueprint.
That's where the conflict began, because there's this pantheon of beings that we call the Anunnaki or Anuna. And they just represent, in my mind, just one side of what we can't perceive that's outside the third dimension. I think that they're beings who mastered reality. And they mastered it because of using Earth and the energy here and basically hijacking it and then allowing humans, they say we were created to do the workload of the gods, their workload. But what does that mean? Well, it says specifically that the Gigi, these non-royal workers of the Anunnaki, were previously doing this workload here. What's the workload? It means maintaining the physical realm here of our world. They were obsessed with creating civilizations based on designing it around agriculture. And so the way they perceived that was, here we're going to create civilizations and we're going to design it based on these specific laws and rules, and we'll become their gods that they'll worship. And then over time, because that's happened multiple times, we've lost a complete understanding of who these gods are, because they became so interwoven with this competition of someone was going to become the savior of humanity. Another one was going to become, the evil, deceptive character in our story. And though that's where this battle began, is that I think that these beings came here and they wanted humans to run this world for them. And then they essentially, like Billy said, structured this reality where we would be stuck in this system. We would die in an incarnation system over and over and over again, because they knew, they were very clever, that there are certain constructs that are put into place as a universal law where a being will ascend to a higher state of consciousness only if they're able to pass these certain types of tests. And those tests were known in Egypt through Osiris, with the whole idea of weighing a human's heart, a soul, with a feather. And the feather was the idea that it weighed nothing. And if you had this negative karmic energy built up in your soul, that you would have to be constantly recycled until you could cleanse that accumulated karmic energy. So what does that matter? Well, what if you structure thousands of years of human history with war and turmoil and chaos, and you get people to have these incredibly disruptive and very, very deaths that just really impact them in such a phenomenally deep way that they have to carry this karma throughout a lifetime. For instance, you're in an army and you're forced to go kill someone. Well, regardless of you were forced to kill them, you still made a choice based on free will. Even though you didn't think that you had a choice, you still made a choice based on free will. And that decision of taking another life is going to follow you lifetime after lifetime until you can do enough to balance that energy and then tip the scales to equal it. That's what this whole system is. So what did the Anunnaki, the Anuna do? They like, okay, so we know that humans can break out of this cycle if they want to, if that is allowed, and they won't have to be perpetually used as batteries here, but we'll just simply structure the reality with so much evil and chaos that will trap them in that cycle for an eternity. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a very good point, Matt, because I had talked about this the other day. The fact that if you look into the biblical text, for example, the book of Deuteronomy, in the book of Deuteronomy, and a lot of people who may not know about this, but in the Bible, whether you see the word God, it's really gods with an S plural. It's a mistranslation by accident on purpose to give us a monotheistic mindset that there was only one God. But in true reality, these were the Anunnaki relatives that were known as the God of the Bible, but they really were gods, plural, fighting each other. So in the book of Deuteronomy, what you have is God talking to the people and telling them to go halfway around the world or to another city that they don't even know exists. They don't even know the people. The people have never done anything wrong to them. But he tells them to go there, and he says these exact words in the Bible: kill the women, kill the children, kill the babies, rape the women if you want to. If you rape a woman, if you decide you want to keep her as wife, you can keep her as a wife. Break down the walls of the city, trick them into coming in. When you get inside, kill them all, pile the bodies up in the front. This is supposed to be God talking, the all-knowing, all-loving God. Yeah, it's a lie. It's not the creator of the universe. It's one of these Anunnaki people. What they're doing is this book of Deuteronomy is a track record or a history of their relatives fighting against each other, using human beings as cattle to do all the fighting and the warring and the killing. And if you look in today's modern age, to tap on what you were saying, Matt, you go to college, you go to high school, they tell you, we want to bring you to college, but you really can't afford it. So what do? They say, look, if you come join our army, we're going to give you a free education. We're going to send you to college for free. You go, oh, wow, I can go to college for free. Then what do? They send you halfway around the world to blow up somebody with a $5 million weapon who lives in a $5 tent. And you think in your mind, well, I'm not really a bad person. I only killed them because I'm trying to get, my school, my college degree. And in your mind, you've made the disconnect from the murder to the fact that you're going to be getting this degree. You've made the disconnect. The empathetic disconnect is gone. And this happens over and over again. And we've got all these people that are fighting all these wars all around the world. Yeah. And the people with the $4,000 suits are sitting in nice, cold, air-conditioned offices, and they're making the decision to send out thousands and thousands of people to their deaths every single day. And we're so blind, we can't even understand that what we're doing is wrong, and we continue to do it day in and day out, day in and day out.